I, you know, saw her outside on the phone. She was crying the night before our wedding. I assumed that she was speaking with her mom or family member, friends. No, I mean, I don't know. Like I know how she felt about me in those moments. So I think that it was, I mean, you got to imagine that they were friends. If she was having doubts, then I'm totally happy, letting things play out and just being together for a long time and figuring all of this out.
Kevin Federline's shocking revelations about Britney Spears. What you're about to hear might completely change everything you thought you knew about one of pop music's most iconic figures. Kevin Federline has just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through the entertainment industry, and the allegations are nothing short of explosive. Britney Spears' ex-husband is making claims that go far beyond typical celebrity drama. We're talking about serious accusations that involve their children and choices that could have put them at risk. Stick around because this story has multiple sides, unexpected twists, and revelations that will leave you stunned. Trust me, you need to hear every detail before forming your opinion on this one. In what can only be described as an absolutely stunning revelation, Kevin Federline is making an incredibly serious allegation against his ex-wife, Britney Spears. According to explosive claims that have emerged from Federline's upcoming memoir titled You Thought You Knew, the Princess of Pop allegedly used cocaine while she was still actively breastfeeding their two young sons. This isn't just gossip or hearsay. These allegations are detailed in Federline's book, and they paint a disturbing picture of what allegedly transpired back in 2006. An excerpt that was obtained and published by Us Weekly reveals the specific incident that Federline claims was the breaking point in their already troubled marriage. So let's set the scene here. We're talking about 2006. Kevin Federline was celebrating the release of his album Playing with Fire, and he was throwing a party to mark the occasion. Now here's where things get interesting. Britney had originally told Kevin that she planned to stay home that evening with their two sons, Sean Preston, who is now 20 years old, and Jayden, who is currently 19. So you can imagine Federline's complete shock and surprise when both Britney and his father-in-law, Jamie Spears, showed up at the celebration unexpectedly. In his memoir, Federline recalls his initial reaction when he saw Jamie Spears arrive. He writes that he was genuinely pleased that Britney's father had made the decision to come out and support him during this important moment in his career. However, that positive feeling didn't last long at all. According to Federline's recollection, Jamie threw a very specific look in his direction, one that immediately communicated something was seriously wrong. Jamie allegedly shook his head and gestured toward Federline's dressing room door with an expression that Federline describes as sitting in that flat blank space between disapproval and apprehension. It was essentially a nonverbal warning that seemed to say, "She's here, and whatever's happening, it's not good. You need to see this." What Federline claims he discovered when he opened that dressing room door is absolutely jaw-dropping. He alleges that he walked in to find Britney Spears and another young female celebrity, described as a starlet, actively snorting what he describes as a fat line of coke right off the table in his dressing room. But wait, it gets even more bizarre. Federline claims that both women were wearing outrageous, attention-grabbing wigs as some sort of disguise. He specifically remembers that Britney's wig was electric blue in color. In his own words, he describes the entire scene as surreal, and perhaps most shockingly, he says they didn't even attempt to hide what they were doing when he walked in. Now, Federline deliberately chooses not to name the other woman who was allegedly present in his book. However, he does provide some tantalizing clues about her identity. He describes her as an actress who was on the verge of major stardom, someone who was about to blow up from a role that would transform her life. So we're talking about someone who was right on the cusp of becoming a household name. According to Federline's account, Britney's brother Brian Spears and her agent Jason Trawick were also present in the room during this alleged incident. So this wasn't just a private moment. There were multiple witnesses to what allegedly took place. Now here's where the situation becomes not just shocking, but genuinely concerning from a child's safety perspective. At the time this incident allegedly occurred, Sean Preston was just 1 year old, and Jayden was merely 1 month old, an infant. And according to Federline, Britney was still actively breastfeeding both of their sons. The National Library of Medicine actually has specific guidelines about this exact situation. According to their recommendations, a breastfeeding abstinence period of 24 hours has been suggested for women who occasionally use cocaine while breastfeeding. This is obviously to prevent any harmful substances from being passed to infants through breast milk. Federline recalls that he immediately addressed this concern with Britney. He remembers pleading with her, saying something along the lines of, "Please don't go home and breastfeed the kids like this. Call your mom or get someone to help. We need to get formula. You absolutely cannot do this." What happened next, according to Federline, was the moment that definitively ended their marriage. He claims that Britney responded to his concern by throwing a drink directly in his face. Reflecting on that moment, Federline tells readers, "That was the proverbial final straw. The breastfeeding thing. Her reaction. That's what ended us." The fallout from that night was swift and dramatic. Just days after Federline's attorney, Mark Vincent Kaplan, sent an official legal letter demanding that Britney stop breastfeeding their children, the Grammy-winning superstar initiated divorce proceedings. Federline describes the pace of events as overwhelming. "It all happened so fast," he writes in his memoir, noting that he couldn't even catch his breath as his marriage crumbled around him. The timeline here is important to understand. Britney and Kevin had only been married for 2 years when she filed the paperwork to dissolve their union in November 2006. The divorce was eventually finalized in July 2007, marking the official end of one of pop culture's most scrutinized relationships. Now, it's crucial to present both sides of this story. As of now, Britney Spears' representative has not yet responded to requests for comment, specifically regarding these cocaine allegations. However, her team did issue a statement pushing back against what they call the sensational claims in Federline's memoir. The spokesperson released a statement that reads, "With news from Kevin's book breaking, once again, he and others are profiting off her. Sadly, it comes after child support has ended with Kevin." This suggests that Britney's team believes the timing of these revelations is financially motivated, and Britney herself has taken to social media to address the situation. She posted on X, formerly Twitter, to rail against what she describes as white lies in the book You Thought You Knew, which is set to be released on October 21st. In her post, Britney wrote in part, "The constant gaslighting from my ex-husband is extremely hurtful and exhausting." She's clearly indicating that she disputes Federline's version of events and feels that she's being manipulated and attacked through these public revelations. This story is far from over, and there are clearly 2 very different versions of what happened during those turbulent years. The truth likely lies somewhere in the complex reality of a relationship that played out under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. As this memoir continues to make headlines and more details emerge, we'll be following every development closely. What do you think about these allegations? Is this a case of someone finally telling their truth? Or is it, as Britney's team suggests, an attempt to profit from past pain? The conversation around this is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Make sure you watch until the very end of our coverage, because we'll be breaking down the legal implications, the custody battle history, and what experts are saying about how this could impact Britney's ongoing fight for her narrative. There's so much more to unpack here, and every piece of information adds another layer to this incredibly complex story. Stay tuned. The full picture is still coming into focus.